Hello everyone, my name is Nilanjan Chatterjee and today we are going to discuss Chola administration. As you can see in the slide, polity and local self-government under the Cholas. Okay, so we'll be talking about largely two aspects of the Chola administration. One is polity and the other one is local self-government. Why is it important to study polity and local self-government? Let's discuss that before we delve into the main subject. So today we often talk about bureaucracy. Today we often talk about sovereignty in the modern context. But if we look at the history of ancient India, we'll see that even in 11th century, we had concepts like bureaucracy and administrative officers, okay, which later on in the medieval period developed and got complicated. And right now, in the modern state of India, we have been following some similar kinds of bureaucratic setup. Okay, we have had a history, a long history of bureaucracy in India, and the Cholas were one of the pioneers of bureaucratic, a very complicated bureaucratic system in India. Not just the Cholas, even if we look at even before the Cholas, like the Mauryas and the Guptas, we will see some very centralized administrative system based on bureaucratic orders. But the Cholas were exceptional in their bureaucratic terms. Why? Because they had to run the entire government with a very complicated bureaucratic system with multiple layers of officers. Let's talk about it. The Chola Empire, as we can see in the very first slide, starting in 850 CE and ending in 1279 CE, represents a defining epoch in South Indian political and administrative history. Far from being simply a conquest driven monarchy or a monarchical system based on territorial expansion, the Cholas institutionalized an intricate and multi layered administrative framework that I was talking about, marked by both centralization and a highly functional model of local self-government. We'll talk about the historiography as to how the historians are kind of describing the Chola administration later on. This video is going to be divided into two parts. In the first part, we'll be talking about the centralized structure, and in the second part, we'll be talking about the implication of the centralized administrative system as well as the multiple layers, the smaller divisions under the central administration. Okay, please stay tuned to watch our videos. Let's come to the very first slide. Central monarchy and royal authority. So the first point, that is divine kingship. This is a very important historical analysis. Why is it called divine kingship? Because the king is not treated as just a human being, rather a human with some heavenly attributes, a human with some divine attributes, a person who is almost next to God. So that is how the Chola emperors used to get legitimacy. Okay, I won't obey your commands. Okay, what do you have to do? You have to claim yourself a superior person. Okay, and how to do that? You say that I am the son of Shiva, so that I have to obey your commands. So that was the case. That is the basic, logic behind divine kingship. Chola monarchs were the linchpin of imperial sovereignty. Okay, Raja the First, one of the famous Chola rulers, Raja the First, who happened to rule from 985 to 1014 CE, architect of the Chola Golden Age, used titles like Mumudi Chola and Sivapadasekara. Okay, that means someone who is in some way attached to Shiva. Okay, Lord Shiva, suggesting divine proximity, as I was saying, and political supremacy. Once you attach yourself to some divine entity, your political supremacy will also be unquestioned. Okay, You suddenly claim that I am the son of Vishnu. The next person, the person next to you, will think twice before questioning your political legitimacy. So that is how divine kingship is very important, particularly in ancient India, even in medieval India. Okay. Next point is central monarchy and royal authority. Okay, that is administrative centers. The monarchy operated from capitals such as Tanjavur, Gangaikonda Cholapuram, okay, and Palayaru. Okay, three centers: Tanjavur, Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and Palayaru. Okay, which served as the administrative, economic, and symbolic nucleus of the Chola administration. Now let's come to the next slide, that is central monarchy and royal authority. As we can see in this slide, the bureaucratic structure of the Chola administration. I was talking about bureaucracy when we started the video. Now let's come to the exact point. The court, the Chola court, was staffed by Perundanam, okay, that is senior ministers, accountants, and revenue officers. We call them Perundanam, and Sirutanam, okay, that means junior staffs, okay, who implemented royal mandates through written orders called Tiruvakya Kelvi. Okay, Tiruvakya Kelvi. You can take a screenshot of this page where I have mentioned all these details. One is Perundanam, that is the senior ministers, then Sirutanam, the junior staffs, and the mandates through written orders, that means Tiruvakya Kelvi. Now let's talk about the military organization of the Cholas. Okay, first point is the fourfold division. The Chola military was organized into four distinct branches. What are these branches? The first is the infantry. Infantry, we all know what is infantry. Infantry, they are basically the foot soldiers, who were called Kallapparai. Okay, the infantry who were called Kallapparai, then cavalry, the mounted soldiers, the soldiers who used to be mounted on horses and elephants. Okay, and they were called Tiruvankam. Then elephant soldiers, that means that which was a subdivision under the cavalry soldiers, who were called Yanaipadai, and Navy, one of the strongest forces of the Chola military organization, who were called Kappalapadai. Okay, this sophisticated structure allowed for coordinated campaigns across diverse terrains. Okay, military units under the Chola administration was supported by cantonments. Okay, cantonments were called Kadagam, and garrisons, Padaividu. Okay, strategically positioned throughout the empire, ensuring rapid response to threats and rebellions. What are garrisons? What are the differences between garrisons and cantonments? Can you tell me? So let me clear one thing. Garrisons are basically a group of soldiers settling down to protect the nation for a purpose. For example, there is an attack which has taken place. So there are a group of soldiers who are settling just to prevent the attack. We call it garrison. The soldiers are staying and settling there with all their uh, troops and weapons. Okay. Apart from that, what is cantonment? Cantonments are basically designated areas which are particularly there for the soldiers. It is not situational, it is not completely based on any kind of foreign attack. Okay, it is there. In cantonments, soldiers live, they stay permanently along with the civilians. So, cantonments are fixed and designated areas, and garrisons are usually situational. Okay, next is naval power. I told you that was one of the most important military organizations of the Cholas. The Chola Navy was particularly noteworthy, enabling projection of power beyond the subcontinent. Okay, Rajendra the First's naval expedition to Kadaram, okay, which is present day Kedah in Malaysia, in 1025 CE demonstrates the empire's maritime capabilities. And elite bodyguards called Velaikaras formed a special military unit with personal loyalty to the king. So this Velaikaras, they happen to be very important in terms of political and military prestige, even carving inscriptions pledging their allegiance to the king. Okay, this militarized ethos, very important, reinforce the monarchy's authority and reach. So if you think just because there were multiple bureaucratic and military categories under the Chola administration, it was very fragile in nature, you are wrong. Why? Because the king, since he is portraying himself as a demigod, as someone blessed by the god himself, happened to have a great amount of control and authority over all the bureaucratic and military layers. Now, next slide, the provincial administration, a very important, very important part of Chola administration. We call it mandalams as well. 8 mandalams we happen to find under the Chola administration. Now let's talk about the highest rank, that is the central monarchy, the ultimate authority and coordination. After that, after the king, the Swami, there comes mandalams, okay, which means the provinces. Mandalams are basically regional governance units, okay, regional governance units. And mandalams were further divided into Valanadus. Okay, what are Valanadus? Valanadus are basically sub-regions. Okay, intermediary administrative divisions. Intermediary administrative divisions. These are all administrative offices. And Valanadus were further divided into like 2 basic units. One is Nadu and the other one is Kurram. Okay, local administrative units. So from regional to intermediary to local, and now the lowest tier of the Chola administration is Ur or Sabha or Nagaram, which means grassroots governance. So that is how layered the Chola administration was. Okay, the territorial expanse of the Chola administration, the Chola Empire, was organized into mandalams or provinces, each governed either by royal kin, the royal family, or trusted administrators. These mandalams had distinct cultural, linguistic, and economic profiles. For instance, Tondai Mandalam in the northeast had strong Jain and Shaivite traditions. Each of these mandalams had their own unique religious and spiritual identity. Whereas Kongu Mandalam in the west retained agrarian tribal elements. Okay. Now let's come to the next slide, that is Valanadu. What is it? The sub-regional administration. The sub-regional administration. The first point is coordination function. What is the coordination function? Valanadu served as crucial intermediary structures between central and local governance. Okay, aggregating tax, irrigation, and judicial data from Nadus. As we can see in this structure, the Valanadus are going to basically transmit data from Nadu and Kurrams to mandalams. That is why they are sub-regional offices. Okay, and what are these informations and what are these offices that they used to take care of? Local governance, aggregating taxes, irrigation. Okay, then along with irrigation, the next point comes, that is water management. Inscriptions from Tiruverumbur in of 1067 CE describe Panjavarna Valanadu. Okay, I am repeating, Panjavarna Valanadu as administering water regulation through coordinated tank cleaning drives. So for irrigation, water management system is required. Okay, that is why this point is very important. Third point is land classification. Again, a very important point. Valanadu officials presided over land classification, ensuring the reliability of tax accounts across multiple villages and settlements. Okay. The next point is the fourth point, final point, that is military organization. These sub-regional units, even these sub-regional units like Valanadu, organized military drafts during external campaigns, mobilizing resources from constituent nadus. They used to take and utilize the resources from the subordinate nadus, and they used to function and they used to run their military organizations. So the next point, the next slide is Nadu and Kurram, district level administration. We have to discuss 4 points. Uh, First is basic administrative unit. That is our first point. Basic administrative unit. The Nadu served as the fundamental unit of fiscal and agrarian administration. I'm repeating, fiscal and agrarian administration. Why? Because agriculture was the main mode of economic production. Okay, you have the Chola Empire had to rely on agricultural activities as the main mode of production, typically composed of several villages governed by an elite body known as the Nattar. Okay, Nattar. Next is local archives. Land transactions, tenancy rights, and irrigation dues were all recorded in Nadu level archives. So, record keeping was another office, another very important office, creating a sophisticated documentation system in the local level. Okay, third point, I've already addressed this point in a nutshell. Nattar responsibilities, the very important third point. The Nattar, often the Vellala landowners. Who are these landowners? Vellala landowners supervised local waterworks, okay, adjudicated conflicts and transmitted taxes to Valanadu officials, the higher officials. A 1020 CE inscription from Melapadi records their deliberation over land allotment to temples. Lands allotted to temples are called, I'm writing it here, Devadana. It happened to be a very important mode of grant or gifts. Okay, Devadana. Then comes the fourth and the most important point, that is Kurram and or slash Tanur. Okay, these were prominent villages or autonomous large settlements. Prominent villages, not like the others, prominent villages with significant economic and political influence, often functioning with the same authority as a Nadu. Okay, so Nadus and Kottams were different, or Kurrams were different. How the Kurrams were different? Because Nadus used to have Nattars, and on the other hand, the Kurrams used to have separate yet very influential political structures which were kind of autonomous. Okay, still under the control of the Chola administration. It was not sovereign. So next point is UR, that is common village assemblies. I'm repeating UR, that is common village assemblies, as we can see in the slide. Uh, First is composition. The UR was General Assembly of non-Brahmadeya villages. That means villages that have not been given to the Brahmins, comprising all adult male tax-paying residents, making it more egalitarian than the Sabha. Okay, we have previously discussed the Nadu. In the next slide, we'll be talking about the Sabhas. Okay, let's concentrate on UR first. Then irrigation management. as I've already mentioned that agriculture was the main mode of production. Irrigation is also very important. Your Ur assemblies exercised collective control over local irrigation systems, crucial for agricultural productivity in the region. Okay. Now the next point is judicial functions. They levied fines on transgressions and oversaw land redistributions, maintaining social order at the village level. Okay, the next point is temple support. As we can see, the Kilkundaram inscription of 1023 CE records the Ur authorizing land grants to maintain lamps in the local Shiva temple. Okay, so some kind of Brahmadeya involvements were there in these lands. Now, next point is Sabha, Brahminical village councils. The first subpoint under this point is the eligibility criteria. Membership required land ownership, membership of Sabha required land ownership, Vedic knowledge, age from 35 to 70, moral standing, and participation in village affairs. Okay. Then Kudavolai system. Okay. Kudavolai system. Lottery based electoral mechanisms. Think about our history. It's in 11th century we used to have this kind of a very advanced system, lottery based electoral mechanism using palm leaves in pots for transparent selection. How brilliant it was. Then committee formation, selected members formed specialized varyams. Okay, this is also very important. We'll be talking about it later on. Varyams or committees with specific portfolios. How complicated and detailed the system was. And the fourth is rotation of office. 360-day terms followed by 3-year cooling period before re-eligibility. Okay. The Sabha, sometimes called Mahasabha, was exclusive to Brahmadeya villages. Settlements granted to Brahmins, either tax-free or partially exempted from royal dues. These functioned as sophisticated corporate bodies with strict eligibility requirements detailed in famous Uttaramerur inscriptions of Paranataka the First, okay, who ruled from 919 to 921 CE. Okay, what are these sabhas or varyams, committees? Okay, sabha committees or varyams. There are 4 varyams that we are going to talk about. Okay, please note there are 4 varyams that we are going to talk about. The first is Eri varyam. Okay, Eri varyam. This committee was responsible for the maintenance of irrigation tanks, crucial for agriculture in the semi-arid regions of South India. They organized desilting operations, managed water distribution, and resolved disputes over water rights. The next point, point number 2, is Ponvarium, okay, tasked with managing gold reserves and conducting financial audits. This committee ensured fiscal responsibility. Okay, they maintained accounts of temple treasuries and village funds, preventing misappropriation. Okay, all sorts of monetary and audit related things were taken care of by Ponvarium. Next is Thottavarium. Okay, the third varium that we are going to talk about is Thottavarium. This specialized committee supervised gardens and groves, overseeing the maintenance of community orchards, flower gardens for temple offerings, and medicinal plant collections. Okay, now the fourth point is Samvatsaravaryam, okay, responsible for early financial planning and public works. This committee coordinated long-term projects and annual budgeting for the village needs. Okay. So these are the important variants. Apart from these variants, many other variants were there. Okay. So we have talked about only 4 variants. Okay. Now, Nagaram, the merchant guild assemblies. Uh, First point, urban governance represented merchant and artisan communities in towns with significant market activity. The first point. Second point, trade regulation managed port facilities, warehouses, and commercial disputes. Third point, international connections affiliated with powerful guilds like Manigramam and Ayabolde with 500 with trans-regional linkages. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, the Velurupalayam plates of 1133 CE mention the participation of the Nagaram in endowing temples with lamps and trade revenues. These urban councils maintained their own militia. They had their own military organizations for market protection, levied trade taxes, which were known as sulki, and operated rest houses for itinerant merchants. So that is it for today. In the next video, we'll be talking about the other impacts of the Chola administration, particularly in the local and provincial level. Please watch our videos, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon so that YouTube knows you are enjoying what you are watching, and stay tuned.